Welcome to another episode of the Office Altering Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, hopefully you'll become a long-time listener. As always, I'm your show host, Molly McGrath, founder of Hiring and Empowering Solutions and creator of this revolutionary podcast. You can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. All right, guys, I am so excited to have a dear friend here, Randa Prendergast. Randa, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to chat.
Yes, I'm sure many of our listeners know you. They've seen you around in the legal software space, in the 1099 independent contractor staffing space, owner of MrsJuneLegal.com. Randa, give us a little bit about your backstory and why you're serving in the legal space.
Sure. So I am a recovering paralegal. I I say that with a lot of love in my heart. I worked for solos and small firms for the majority of my time as a paralegal. So I wore many hats and understood how a law firm should be ran. And so I did billing, I did paralegal support, I was the office manager, everything in between. I took some time to raise some kids, and so I did some contract work, and that's where I started to explore my contract paralegal services. I quickly, I was tapped out on hours. It was a huge need for law firms, so I started placing 1099 remote paralegals, and I was noticing that they were not as successful as they should be because a lot of these law firms didn't have any processes in place, or they didn't have legal tech set up to help for people to help them remotely. So that's where the other part of my firm was born. We set up legal processes in law firms. We do implementation of the processes in your law firm and your case management systems. We do training. We also do the placement of paralegal experience, paralegal support. And then I noticed a little bit later that, a lot of law firms have a cash flow issue because they're not doing billing on a regular basis. And I realized that a lot of the times it was a time issue and also a too much emotion was involved with their billing. So, and we can talk about that in a little bit. So we started providing billing clerks to take that emotion out of billing to have consistent billing. So therefore you have more and better cash flow for your law firm.
Wow. So you do just 1099 remote placement, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And so I'd love to talk about that too, because so many people are like, no, we need someone in-house. So let's talk about that in a minute. But I would love to just ask you, so you're full-time in office for the majority of your career as a paralegal, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And then you decide I want to start a family, I want to grow my family, start having babies, what have you. And so you went, what year was that when you went remote?
I went remote in 2011.
Okay, listeners,
Yes.
holy moly,
Yes.
2011. So you did not want to leave the profession. Obviously, you are a high value creator. Your attorneys didn't want to lose you. So 2011, you're working remotely.
Yes.
And you are proof of concept that it works.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about if you can think of any like byproducts of going remote, of how you feel that it really made the law firms more efficient and intentional, because there was no longer, that's what I hear from attorneys all the time. I don't want someone remote because I want someone that I could just pop my head in their office. I could just run down the hall and ask them. And you know where I'm going with that. I'm like, that's not efficient. That's not effective.
Not at all. Not at all. So when I first started, there wasn't a ton of cloud-based software, or is very new. So I did a lot of remote access to computers and stuff like that. It was still possible to get on a desktop in someone's office that they had set up. And then we slowly moved to like cloud-based softwares. But I just started documenting everything that I was doing. So whether I was doing it, or someone else, they could step in and do it. So, um, popping in and interrupting someone's work is not efficient at all. So I encourage workflows and task lists within your law firm so everyone knows what they're doing for the day, and then absolutely making sure that you're having those matter review and case review meetings each week. And that really helps people prioritize their work. And so you have to be super intentional about those meetings. They should go over tasks that are on matters or cases, calendar events so you can prioritize if there are hearings or deadlines coming up, and then billing, making sure that your client has enough retainer to cover all the tasks that you're doing. So during those meetings, I'm very intentional. I was very intentional with my law firms. I teach my law firm owners now to be very intentional. We're not going to talk about how to do a task. We're not going to talk about the details of the task. We're just going to identify what task we're on, what's on the calendar, where the billing is. All the other side conversations of how to do something or questions about, more details of a task, all of that is a separate conversation at a later time. So that way you're getting through your cases and your matters efficiently. You're identifying and prioritizing your task. And then if there's any further discussion or questions, you schedule those 15-minute block or 30-minute block separately with your attorney.
And I always train this in my law firm admin boot camp. I love that you're like, we're not getting into the how, we're talking about the what and why really quickly. But especially in this day and age, when you hire, right? And
Mhm.
you hire people that are deeply curious, that they are solution finders, you don't have to talk about the how. It actually, AI, this thing called Google, this thing called Paralegals Connect, and all these Facebook groups that are extraordinary and very abundant out there. Get on the phone with Randa, what have you. Let your team come to you and figure out how they're going to do it, how they're going to set it up in Clio, or how they're going to whatever, and present it and propose it to you. I see so often, I just got off a call where I was facilitating a weekly stakeholders meeting. The attorney wants to finally get out of the meetings, but they need to see the data, the information, and the reporting about last week at a glance and the next month at a glance, and be able to see everything. And I'm in there and I'm witnessing it. And 15 minutes in, they're still talking about the how to do it. I'm like, guys, time out. Go figure it out and then present it and bring it, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and then, you know, if you have task lists and workflows in place in your case management system, the way we build them and customize them for you, they're so detailed. They're going to tell you what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and who's going to do it and when they're going to do it. So you don't, in addition, there should be very little conversation. It should be very case specific or a very specific question at that point on on that task. So it shouldn't take a lot of time to do a small sidebar specifically for it. And honestly, it could probably just be covered in a quick chat, a direct question. But we don't want to get into the weeds during those, weekly meetings. But that's what keeps everyone on the same page on what's going on and allows the law firm to have remote workers. Everyone logs in at Zoom, they have their tasks, they know what they're going to be talking about or what they're going to present. They're going to go through each case, identify or look at those three things, and then move on.
Let's talk about remote workers. So
Yes.
I have so many law firms. I'm blown away that have an absence of a case manager and or a billing coordinator. But to your point, the revenue is not there. They're so behind on AR. They're so behind on billing, what have you. Talk to me about what you see as the benefits of it and the lack of dangers of having a remote billing coordinator.
Sure. So, it's super important to identify like why do you have this AR? So with our legal consulting, we kind of dive into that. Like, Is it the lack of billing? Is it the billing process overall? Are you, I can understand if maybe you're a family law attorney that you're too emotional or emotionally invested in your client's case that you don't want to bill them, or you're not being honest about how much actual time you're spending on their billing. And so
Oh,
um, you're not accurately capturing your billing, right? So we dive deep there first to figure it out, and then we take the emotion out of it and we place a remote billing clerk. And the billing clerk, we talk about how to have an AR, not a zero AR law firm. And so based on the way you want to do billing and our suggestions, the billing clerk will do that on a regular basis. Now, there is some things that you have to do. A lot of times you have to approve your draft invoices. So I literally make you sit and go through your calendar and put a working block to do so that it's consistent. When the billing clerk sends you your draft invoices, you already have that working block to approve them and communicate with that person. And then everything gets sent out, and then you get a report for, your trust bank report basically. But we can also offer some of those what I call billing maintenance tasks. So you have your regular billing cycle, and then I call billing maintenance task is anything that happens in between that billing cycle. So sometimes that is identifying that you need to stop work on a case because your client isn't paying you. Sometimes that's reaching out to the client beyond just sending them the invoice or the retainer replenishment request through case management. Maybe it's an email or a phone call. So we do all of that through an email with your law firm and through a VoIP to make sure that everything stays within your law firm and you have access to it. And then we also provide billing letters to your clients. So like we'll also, help draft a letter that you review and approve, that goes to your client saying, this is how much you owe, or we're going to stop essential work on this date if it's not paid. Or if they're a past client and they still owe you money, we will also do some, um, collections work in the sense of sending out that letter and then, coming up with a kind of collections cadence that's roughly around 90 days.
I love that. Collection cadence.
Yes.
So and I do hear from attorneys a lot. They're emotionally involved in it, whether it's a family law case or what have you. And what I'm hearing from you of having that remote billing coordinator, a few things. Number one, it takes you out of the equation.
Mhm.
They're managing the process, they're managing the communications with clients. So they're serving as a buffer for you that you don't have to have that conversation. Number two, that because you have a system and a process and they are dedicated just to this position,
Mhm.
they can make certain that time is being entered in real time and reminding you of the why. We're a for-profit business. Right now
Right.
we have no revenue coming in. This is how much is sitting in, aging. And they can remind you that you're a business owner and keep
Mhm.
anchoring you to that process and finding different hacks to take the emotions out of it. And I love
Right.
scheduling that time on the calendar that the attorney has to review. Here's my question to you. Attorneys, entrepreneurs, all of us, we ditch those internal meetings sometimes. We're like, oh, I'll get to that. I have time at 10 o'clock tonight, or I'll do that over the weekend, or what have you. How do you train your billing coordinators to really, and what have you done in the past in law firms to hold the attorney's feet to the fire? I always tell attorneys, treat an internal meeting with the same respect that you do a client. You would never cancel a client meeting.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So, our policy is that we continue to follow up with you every 24 business hours, basically. So, it's going to cost you more money because we charge hourly. So, the less responsive you are, the more expensive it's going to be. Number one. And number two, I am an action gal. If I have to, I will show up on that blocked meeting. So you have to do it with me. And
Yes,
then
I
we're
love
going
that.
to talk about it over and over again. And, people don't like to spend extra money too. That comes with its own cost also. If I had to hold you accountable to your own firm. Now, this is what I say, you can lead a horse to water. right? I will do everything in my power, all the tips and tricks and accountability. But if you are just not open, if you don't care about your law firm being a business and you don't care about the HR and this, that, and then I can't care any further. So it is possible that we part ways too. I am not the type to sit back and just take your money doing billing and have you not do any implementation. That's not good for you. And it's really not good for me. It doesn't show that you're successful. It doesn't, it's, and so we'll part ways. We only work with people that are determined to, change their habits. And yes, it does take some time. So we're there along the way to help you do that. But if it comes to a head, we're okay saying maybe we're not a good fit.
I love that you just brought that up of changing your habits because that's at the root of all of it. And
Mhm.
it just made me think I had a law firm recently that they were just so, busy, 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 launching this new marketing initiative, what have you. The attorney shutting down the paralegals, who's also the office manager and also the billing coordinator and what have you. And I'm like, guys, you're going to be screwed because you could, why is a paralegal even in a conversation about marketing right now? Like she needs to be billing, she needs to be pumping work out, what have you. But she's
Mhm.
also the office manager. And this comes to a point of even like having several people wearing multiple hats in each department. Lo and behold, I get a message that, cash flows hurting, but we were able to all shut down, get work down, get billing down, get money in the door, what have you. But it was at the 11th hour. The amount of freaking stress that it created on everyone. And, attorneys and entrepreneurs always play this game, and it is a game a little bit, but it's unnecessary. The amount of work that went into that. So, a few things. It's like, keep people in their wheelhouse. You have to have your paralegals consistently and associate attorneys performing. And
Yes.
and and it's for me, I'm like, get them out of operations, get them out of billing, and get a dedicated billing coordinator. I mean, when
Mhm.
you look at the ROI, it's not about the fee that it's going to cost, it's a cost of not having this position, right?
Absolutely. Like, and you can't collect if you're not sending. You can't collect if it's not consistent. Think about it this way too. It's really, really bad customer service to not bill consistently. Like, if you are the client, put yourself in the client's shoes. You pay thousands of dollars for a retainer and then you don't get a bill for a month and a half or 2 months because the attorney didn't have time. Like, I would be so overwhelmed then getting this humongous bill and having to come up with, thousands of dollars again. Like, it's really not fair, or it doesn't really look good or reflect well on the law firm. And from a customer service standpoint, like, you wouldn't want in any other industry for that to happen to you.
Yes.
And
And and
yeah,
I want to add this, and they think that they don't know what you're doing. So now I get this bill and
yes.
it's all this in a client's perspective, they're like, what the heck is this point 0.5? What the heck is this 0.25? What the heck? I didn't realize when I called you to ask about blah, 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 that I was going to get billed for that and all of that. And then they get this bill, and what's their first reaction? You're padding this and you're full of crap because they've had no communication with you
Yep.
at all.
Yep.
And then they
That's
get,
literally about what I was gonna say. Exactly. Yep. So it acts also as what I call a natural client touch point. So throughout the life of your cases, you have what I call natural client touch points. They get a consistent bill, it tells them what's happening on their case. They're going to get copies of timestamp pleadings. They're going to get the discovery request. They're going to get reminders of hearings and deadlines, right? Those are all natural that happen throughout the life of the case. In addition to that, there's a couple other things that you can do to minimize what the heck, those questions of what the heck have you been doing or you're padding this, right? And also it minimizes interruptions from the client. They don't call you and say, "Hey, what's going on with my case?" because you're already being proactive. So in addition to like that is a natural client touch point. So when we build out workflows and task lists, we also work in maybe another client task touch point that gets set every 30 to 45 days. And it can be done by a legal admin, it can be done by a para, it can be billable. It's saying, this is what's going on with your case. Do you have any questions? Has there been any change in circumstances? By the way, we need your discovery, or here's your hearing date that's coming up. We're going to prepare you for it with your call with the attorney on this date. And it kind of keeps them in the loop of what's going on with their case. So they're not going to interrupt you. They're also probably not going to be mad about the bill that they're getting because they're consistently knowing that you're working on their case. So giving them that bill is that natural client touch point. If it's done on a regular basis, and there's also a little bit more communication throughout the life of your case.
Yeah, and communicating, here's what we've done thus far and what we're billing you for, and here's what it did to move the case forward to a positive outcome for you, client.
Mhm.
And then you get that bill and you're like, great, this is the best money I ever spent. I am so delighted that I'm not trying to represent myself or working with some yahoo off of LegalZoom or whatever it might be.
Right.
That because people are not paying you for just hours of services, they're paying you for an outcome, and when they get that bill, they're delighted because you are the expert and you have their back.
Absolutely. Yes.
Here's a question for you. I cannot believe how many law firms do not have a case manager, and a lot of paralegals are so in the weeds, what have you. They're just playing whack-a-mole all day into what's coming at them, especially if they don't have a workflow or a CRM that I know you are so incredibly passionate and unwavering about. Can a billing coordinator serve as a case manager to support as well?
That's a great question. I would definitely, we don't currently have billing clerks serve in that role, but I'm not opposed to also finding, case managers for, or utilizing, kind of that dual role. Um, it is, so if you have an experienced paralegal in your firm, and I would, if you're able to, it is some nice to have sometimes the paralegal do that dual role until they can have that role on its own, right? Until you have enough cash flow and growth for it to be its own role. And the only reason I recommend a paralegal role is because they know exactly what's going on in all the cases at all the time. And sometimes, if you only have a billing clerk that is inserting themselves in that position, or they're not involved with the work on a regular basis, I think that you would have to be very, very, very good as a law firm as a whole to document everything for them to even take that role on. And sometimes our billing clerks aren't necessarily like they've been in the legal field, but they haven't been a para for years on end or anything like that. So, um, a lot of our billing clerks some of them have been paralegals, some of them are just legal admins. So they may not have that expertise to lead that conversation. I like for I think paras are just amazing. They know everything. They know how you run your cases. And so I think that to save time, if they're already involved on a daily basis, even remotely, um, making them or um, making them into that kind of case manager role, I think is super important. Um, if I were just to hire for a case manager, I would look for paralegal experience, a lot of
Yes.
paralegal experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to, kind of this dollars and cents and exploring the vital role of billing clerks in law firms, what would you say to our attorney and or paralegals that are like, yes, I've been waiting for us to fill this position. I've been screaming from the rooftops. What can we do to give the attorneys a boost of confidence that this is a vital role and it will create additional income other than just getting the bills out. What are some of the strategic byproducts that you see come out of having a billing clerk?
Just taking that, it frees up everyone's time, and just that alone, lifting that extra task off of someone almost immediately is freeing. In addition to that, once we're like 90 days in, you're going to really see a significant increase in your cash flow. And so it's going to almost be immediate to, the consistency in billing will be reflected pretty quickly. And so you'll definitely recognize how important that role is and how you're going to be saying to yourself, why didn't I do this sooner? So, when the paralegal doesn't have to worry about if there's enough retainer on a matter and they're just told either to work or to stop work, it makes their life a lot easier than to try to determine that on their own. That alone can be, cumbersome. Just making sure every time you touch a file, there's funds. Should I be doing this task or not be doing this task? Um, that's cumbersome in itself, let alone if they have to also do the billing for the matter too.
Yes, absolutely. And the energy, people only measure time and money, but the energy for the paralegals, for the attorney, for everybody that's working on the file to move the matter forward, that they don't have to worry about that. They know that it's handled. In addition to when their hours aren't entered or things of that nature, you have a billing clerk that serves as a safety net and almost like a accountability coach for all of you. And
Absolutely.
if you need to delegate something, I have some firms where they're like hiring a billing clerk was great because they actually part of their job is to go through my email especially for a managing partner. They're the worst about getting time in and getting money or what have you. They know the places to go and spend time every single day and support me with getting my time entered as well.
Yes. So in addition to the billing clerks, like we don't just, and I want to be clear, like I just won't place a billing clerk if you don't have a billing process that's like written out basically. I a lot of times love to do the billing process, then have the clerk because I think that shows more success rate. Um, but yeah, part of their tasks can be those in between maintenance tasks, like checking emails, checking for time that are in your case management system but not tied to a matter, and bringing it to your attention, or figuring out where it should go, by looking at your calendar, looking at your email, or if you have a VoIP system. So we are training on where to find all of that information, and they are legal admins at least, so they are familiar with the workings of a law firm to know where to look for those items.
So another strategic byproduct is doing quality control and going back
Mhm.
after, and you're seeing that there's things on the calendar. So then they can update the SOP, they can update the process in the system for the next billing clerk to put that in their time chunking, their time management, and go back. And so I'm hearing a couple things: process improvement, number one. Number two, freeing up the attorney's time because they know there's a process. So they know Susie Q is going in there every day from 8 to 8:30 to go through their calendar, go through their email, go through their VoIP, whatever it might be, and really update that. So I think subconsciously, as an attorney, you're a lot more intentional as well, and actually part of the creation versus a problem just automatically because you're paying this
Right.
person and you know that if they're doing it for you, it's going to just really transcend through the entire firm.
Yes, and I mean, we take advantage of all softwares possible where we can identify that quickly. So, like, there's some, third-party softwares that integrate with Clio that will keep all of your time on everything that you touch. So there's a better running list of that. So we don't have to check all the different places, just being more efficient, that way. But yeah, there is that safety net and accountability, that we're holding, your hand to. And then it's our policy, like if our billing clerks are like, hey, it's been 3 days and their bills are just sitting there and I haven't heard anything, like I'm the next person they're gonna have to try to answer to. So, that I think is significant to that. I'm not just throwing the billing clerks out there and be like, you're on your own to follow up with them. I'm very much involved with that transition of learning or training yourself to do different things.
Amazing.
So.
Randa, tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you.
Yes, so if you go to mrsjunelegal.com, there's a lot of great information on there. You can subscribe to our newsletter. It has a lot of tips. You can schedule a call with me to see if our services would be helpful to you. I'm also just here to give you information. So if you just want to chat for 30 minutes, I got you. I'll give you some practical things you can implement. And then if you look us up on any social media, if you search Attorney Whisper, we'll pop up. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on TikTok. I'm trying to get more involved with TikTok so I can
Oh,
bring you guys some more information.
oh, Randa,
So,
as always, I am beyond grateful for you. I know many of my law firms that work with you in regards to process improvement and taking the leap and investing in a billing coordinator. And I cannot say enough. I love that you entered this virtual space in 2011, and now you're really supporting attorneys with really believing in it, seeing proof of concept that it's possible, especially with this position. You can easily place it and they don't have to be in-house. And I know, as you know, I do W-2 permanent placement, and there's a lot of challenges, additional challenges that come with that. And so attorneys, if you do not have a billing coordinator, and let me ask you this question in closing, really, really quick. What about people that do flat fee?
sure. So there's definitely still a need. It's
Yes.
surprising how many people say they're flat fee, but they're not collecting that flat fee before they do work. So there's a problem there. Or they have flat fee, in family law, it's super big right now to do flat flat fee model of just like, different packages of things. So there's still that need if a client, gets through the discovery process and wants to go into mediation, has additional flat fees. Making sure that we get those out and they're paid and we're following up with the client before any work happens is essential.
I love it. You just hit two big things. One, they may be packages, and I see this so often with attorneys, law firms that do flat fee, that this is where the emotion comes in. Oh, that's okay. We'll just do that. Oh, that's and the line of delineation when they're moving from one service or package to another. Again, having a billing coordinator where they're like, hang on, I just ran a report, and they move from discovery or they move from whatever into mediation or into litigation, timeout. They move to a different workflow, a different funnel, what have you,
Yeah,
which is they get to play good cop, bad cop. You get to be the attorney still providing counseling, paralegals that do that, but they can just be like, it's just my job. I'm just following process and really protect you from that. And for people that do a flat fee, like estate planning or what have you, it
right.
shows you where your pricing, you need to increase your prices or you're not profitable or what have you. So when we're looking at the time that is put in
Mm,
for every single person for this
yep.
position, and then it tells you where you're not profitable and where we really need to make adjustments in our packages, in our pricing, and our client expectations, communications, and services we're delivering.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. So even if you are flat fee, you have to keep time. It's just essential. Keep time on all your matters. And then we have the ability to take a look at that to make sure that you're priced accordingly.
Oh, Randa, thank you so much.
Thanks
I'm
for
beyond
having me.
grateful. I'm beyond grateful that I found you, I met you, and understand your services, especially with this position. I am pushing all my law firms hard to have a billing clerk. It is a no-brainer. In fact, I think it's really incredibly reckless not to have a position, even especially if you do flat fee, because you're not really operating like that. I see all these attorneys buying this book, Buy Back Your Time, which I love, 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 by Dan Martell, what have you. But this is a case in point of why you want to have a billing coordinator in place for all of you to serve as that safety net and really that accountability coach for time management.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a joy to talk to you.
Yes. Okay. Attorneys, paralegals, legal assistants listening to this, if you do not have a process in place, if you do not have a billing coordinator in place, reach out to Randa. Get this on your Q2 quarterly strategic retreat projects, which will support you all in addition to supporting you getting your bonuses each quarter as well.
Great. Thank you.
We've reached the end of yet another episode of the Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast, where dream teams of entrepreneurs in an entrepreneur's world really do come true. Listen, whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, we fully understand hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, often overwhelming, and absolutely time-consuming for the already taxed professional. Well, we have your back on all fronts. For 25 years and counting, we have transformed over 4,000 law firm teams into the most efficient, resourceful, and profitable asset of your business. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.